Game week 7 has only just finished, but it's time to talk about my game week 8 transfer plans. With a wildcard still available, 2 free transfers, and EZE still stinking up the team, it's time to talk about exactly what I plan on doing over this international break. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure to drop a like, and of course, smash that subscribe button. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, a super quick recap on how game week 7 went. I ended up rolling my free transfer, and I can't lie, I was expecting the worst. I was going into this game week with some concerns about certain players, and then we had the information that Robertson was benched out of nowhere. Considering he went off early in the Champions League game, I think we all thought he was fine for minutes, so he was a real frustration. And to top it off, Smith Rowe also being benched for Fulham, which was a big surprise. And with lots of my players playing up against one another, in the first game I had Henderson and EZE up against my double Liverpool defence and Diogo Jota in the team. So considering all of that, 52 points scored and somehow a green arrow from 1.5 million to 1.2 million, I am actually delighted with. It could have been so much worse. So just quickly running through the team, 3 points for Henderson this week actually feels okay, considering the likes of Man City and Arsenal both conceded. The defence could have been so much more if Robertson did actually play in front of Tsimikas. We need to assess whether Robertson will continue to be a rotation risk in future game weeks. Lewis with a 4-pointer, considering how bad Man City was, we will run away with those 4 points and take them gladly. And Trent showing what a brilliant option he remains with that 8-point haul. In terms of the midfielders, what it could have been putting the captaincy on Bukayo Saka. We all spoke about how brilliant the fixture was, and Saka delivered, punishing those that did obviously sell him going into game week 7 with that 16-pointer. I'm really glad to keep the faith with Diogo Jota. I spoke about how I think he is still Arne Slot's #1 forward in this team, and while he remains there, I still think he's a brilliant option for our FPL teams. 8-pointer, then the rest stinking up the team. 3 for Rodgers, 2 for EZE, and 1 for Smith Rowe coming off the bench. In terms of the front two, disaster. 2-pointer for Haaland as my captaincy obviously doubled to 4. And Ollie Watkins in a week where people like Solanke got an assist. Of course, we had other forwards delivering. Really needed Watkins to put a point on the board for me, but it just didn't happen with that 2-pointer, and it might be his final appearance in my team, with him obviously being such a significant part of my budget. But all in all, 52 points, really happy with the score considering my situation and role in the transfer. And as I mentioned, still a wild card available to my team. I feel like there is only going up in this team, but of course, let me know in the comment section, how many points did you score in game week 7? So taking a look ahead to game week 8, of course, if you didn't know already, it is now the international break somehow. I can't believe how many we've had in the opening few months of this Premier League season. So if you're looking at making an early transfer, please do wait. So much can happen over this international break. We've already seen injuries in the first one. Be patient. So even though we are doing a transfer plan video right now, the overarching theme is going to be don't be making early transfers. But going into game week 8 right now, of course, with 2 free transfers and unfortunately nothing in the bank, I need to be shrewd with the moves that I am making. And the first question that we need to ask myself, with of course a wild card available, is does this team here need a wild card? So Henderson away against Nottingham Forest, not the best fixture in the world, but again, do I need to make a goalkeeper transfer with this team? I don't think it is the overarching problem in this side. In terms of the defence, double Liverpool defence at home against Chelsea. I spoke about in my previous video how I still don't know exactly what to think about Chelsea, being a Chelsea fan. We had a really favourable open run of fixtures for Maresca, getting into the trickier parts now. Don't know exactly where they are at, and I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool put a confident performance up against Chelsea. So double Liverpool defence I don't think is actually a disaster in game week 8. And Rico Lewis away against Wolves, I mean, Kyle Walker continues to put in stinkers for Man City. I do think Lewis will remain in that Man City team. And away against Wolves with their performances under Gary O'Neill, more than happy to keep him in the team. In terms of the midfielders, Bukayo Saka away against Bournemouth, he is Mr. Consistent right now. And I don't really feel like I need to be selling him. I think that is a classic case of overthinking it in FPL. And again, with Diogo Jota's form right now in this Liverpool team, at home against a Chelsea team who now don't have Cucurella or potentially Colwell and Fofana, I think that is a no-brainer keeping Diogo Jota in this team for a Chelsea defence that concede a lot of chances. I'm expecting Jota to get some returns against Chelsea. Now, the mid-price midfielders is where the concern is. Rodgers away against Fulham, I think, is absolutely fine, but I do have some concerns about Aston Villa as a team. They've had a great start to the season, but we actually look at the underlying numbers for Aston Villa. They're not actually playing that well. With the injuries mounting up there, I am a little bit concerned that we might see a slight decline in Aston Villa as we progress throughout the weeks. Yes, if some of these players do return after the international break, then I might feel a bit more confident about it. But Fulham are a form team right now. We saw that against Man City. I don't really think Aston Villa are going to have an easy game against them. So having double Aston Villa attack against Fulham doesn't really sit too well with me. But Rodgers remains a brilliant value pick. Smith Rowe at home against Aston Villa. I still like Smith Rowe as a pick. I'm not jumping to conclusions just yet. But the big one is going to be EZE, which we will touch on in a minute, because it's enough of the budget in the team where there are so many other great alternatives out there. I have to be really confident in EZE as a pick to remain in this team. Whereas Rodgers and Smith Rowe are cheap enough where we can kind of just keep them around for a bit longer. And in terms of the front two, I know Haaland blanked again, but I don't feel that compelled to take him out of the team, especially against this Wolves team that conceded 5 goals against Brentford. And Ollie Watkins away against Fulham. As I spoke, I think Fulham are a really good team, and I don't think this is going to be an easy game for Aston Villa. But as we know, if Aston Villa get a result, Watkins is going to be at the heart of it based on the underlying numbers that we have seen. But with him being around 9 million and with many other mid-price forwards available like Solanke, Kai Havertz and of course someone like a Chris Wood, I need to really reassess whether Watkins is actually a good pick for my team going forward, or whether using him as a cash cow actually will help my overall squad in future game weeks. So really, it's all about EZE this week and Watkins and whether we can manoeuvre them out of the team. But all in all, I don't think this team needs a wildcard, meaning game week 12 is the week where I'm prioritising my wildcard, which could be a brilliant time for me to catch those gains where managers may be crawling towards their second wildcard. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's take a look at a few players that I'm planning on bringing in. Now, as always, when we're coming into a period where I'm looking at 2 free transfers and slightly structuring the team differently, I think looking at the fixtures is some of the most important things that we can do in FPL. So we're looking at the next 6 game weeks right now in terms of the fixture ticker. Best teams at the top in terms of difficulty, worst at the bottom. So Man United at the top of the tree right now, but I'm going to be honest with you, I have no confidence in any Man United player right now to even consider them. Even though the fixtures are good, I would have no clue which player to invest in. So until I have that confidence, I'm not going to look at Man United options. Brentford are definitely the team that I need to start having some investment in. Mbeumo has been a thorn in my team each and every game week. And even though it is away against Man United in game week 8, not the best entry point for Mbeumo, I also do think that Man United are a team that are very hard to predict. And would I be surprised if Brentford were to score a couple of goals against them? Absolutely not. And we have seen that Mbeumo is absolutely the heart of everything good in this Brentford team. So Mbeumo, of course, is one of the priority options for my team. The only thing that we need to talk about, and we'll address it, it will require a -4 to get there if I was to sell EZE, or I would have to downgrade one of my premium options to get there, which could be a slight concern. But of course, 2 free transfers available. The options are there. Nottingham Forest, another team. Now, I don't really want to go for anybody else other than Chris Wood, but he continues to tick over nicely. Another goal against Chelsea. And whenever Chris Wood scores, he gets on the bonus points. He really is a bonus point magnet. When I'm looking at those cheap options, people are going for Calvert-Lewin. I really do think Chris Wood probably is the route that I would go for. As a brilliant home fixtures for him, he is definitely the one that I would love to get to if I'm looking to open up some funds in this team. But the one player, of course, in Spurs, Dominic Solanke, is the one that is really ticking over nicely. Not to the extent of Chris Wood, but I feel like I have more confidence investing in this Spurs attack as opposed to the Nottingham Forest one. And with those upcoming fixtures for Spurs against a West Ham defence that can be leaky at times, Palace who have their struggles, and Villa and Ipswich at home, I really do feel like the priority right now is definitely getting a Spurs attacker in the team. Now, outside of the ones that have great fixtures, obviously down here, the teams that have bad fixtures, Aston Villa right at the bottom. Now, even though they have bad fixtures, there are good ones amongst that. Game week 9 at home against Bournemouth, that's a great fixture for both Rodgers and Ollie Watkins. But either side of that, Fulham away, Spurs away, Liverpool away, Chelsea away in game week 13. But again, I'm not looking that far ahead because I probably will wildcard in game week 12. And look at those next 4 and think, definitely could be goals, but not also the best fixtures that we could have when I could flip it to those teams at the top of the tree here. So Villa are a team definitely worth considering selling. And Arsenal, even though they are at the bottom here, they are one of the best teams in the league right now. And sometimes I think we can overthink FPL. And even though Bukayo Saka has the tougher fixtures, he's just one of the most consistent performers in the league right now. And if I was to sell someone like a Saka to go to a Spurs midfielder, do I really trust Spurs? Losing 3-2 to Brighton more than I do to Arsenal? And the answer is going to be no. So even though Arsenal are at the bottom, I don't really feel comfortable using Saka as my cash cow to get other players. So those are the teams that I'm targeting: Spurs, Nottingham Forest and Brentford right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's get to that EZE replacement if I do choose to sell him. So of course, as I mentioned, right now in my team, I do feel like EZE is the one that really splits opinion. In the analytical community, a lot of people are talking about how EZE is a great pick long term. He's a talisman in that Palace team, of course. His numbers are still okay, and we're going to touch on those in a minute. And the fixtures are okay as well. But of course, when we have other options available, like Brian Mbeumo and Brennan Johnson, who, I'm going to be honest, if I'm going to do a midfield transfer, it really is going to be for one of those two options, maybe both if I look to sell another midfielder. These ones are offering not only probably better fixtures, but also better underlying numbers. And when we take a look at the figures right now, this isn't using Brennan Johnson's numbers in Game Week 7. I do apologise. I will pop them in the comment section of the video. But this is based on per 90 minutes. And Brennan Johnson remains one of those assets that isn't necessarily being a chance creator in the Spurs team, but he doesn't need to be because he is being the goal scorer in that team. When we look at teams that are actually accumulating expected goals across the course of the game, Spurs are right up there. They're having a lot of shots, a lot of good opportunities in each game. With their fixtures coming up, a lot of those at home, I always fancy Spurs when they do have home fixtures. And Brennan Johnson, while he eats up all that XG, is the guy that I really want to bring in my team. So it's tough to keep EZE right now when we're looking at the numbers. XG per 90 is not terrible. And this is the thing we need to address right now. 0.44 XG per 90 is absolutely fine. Isn't really being that creative, whereas we're used to that in a Crystal Palace team. And his shots per 90 also at 3.86 are not bad either. But when we can get someone like Brennan Johnson with the better fixtures and more confidence in that Spurs attack than that of Crystal Palace, it does beg the question, does it make sense to downgrade EZE to Brennan Johnson, free up a bit of funds, and also a bit of confidence knowing I have a piece of that Spurs attack? Mbeumo, as I mentioned, does require a little bit of an upgrade, so I will have to use both of my free transfers, meaning I'm going to have to downgrade someone in this team to enable this move. When I look at the Brentford fixtures coming up, Man United away, not the best entry point, but on the same breath, we know that Brentford can score definitely against Man United. Then Ipswich at home feels like a brilliant game. Fulham away, not great, but then Bournemouth at home and Everton away. I feel like Mbeumo is going to be one of those players that if I'm going to get him in, just get him in this week and just be done with it, because he is going to continue to be a thorn in my side, as I mentioned. And the numbers, while they're not amazing, I'm going to be honest, Mbeumo hasn't actually excited me as much as other managers, but while he does get these big chances in this Brentford team with guaranteed minutes and on penalties, he's always going to remain a fantastic pick. So right now, I do think selling EZE does make sense to some degree, but only out of fear, because I actually do think with the numbers that I'm looking at of EZE and the fixtures coming up, I still think he can score and deliver in each of these games. So selling EZE is probably the logical move in terms of just getting it done. But I also do feel like EZE can pose still some FPL value. Let me know what you do with EZE. I think I'm naturally going to be tempted to go towards these players, but I still think he can deliver value. So taking a look at my Game Week 8 transfer plans, there are a couple of things I absolutely can do. As I've spoken about, a wildcard is not on the cards for my team. With the 2 free transfers, I feel like I can get myself to a position where the team is strong. Now, as you can see, with the first variation that I've put on the screen, I have sold EZE for Brennan Johnson. I haven't actually made the move. Just a heads up, as I said, do not be making early transfers. But the first move that I could make with my 2 free transfers is selling EZE for Brennan Johnson, which would give you the team on the screen here. It would leave me with 0.3 million in the bank and 1 additional free transfer available. And when I took a look at this team right now, I asked myself, is there another transfer that I can make that really does improve the team? One move I could do is do Watkins to Solanke and go for the double Spurs attack. That is absolutely viable. But do I think that really is a necessity in this game week? I'm probably going to say the answer is no. I do back the Spurs attack, but I feel confident maybe just having one piece of it for now, and then I could look to maybe go for double up in a future game week, because I spoke about Fulham being difficult, and I do think they are. But Watkins, I still feel very confident as an FPL asset in himself, because if Villa are going to get a result, I feel like he is going to be at the absolute heart of it. So I'm more than confident going into game week 8, just making that one free transfer and bringing in Brennan Johnson. Now, the second draft that I'm going to show you here for game week 8 actually uses both of my free transfers. And what this does, it sells EZE to Bryan Mbeumo, and it downgrades Watkins to Dominic Solanke. Now, of course, I can't make the EZE to Mbeumo move without actually selling somebody like a Watkins to free up the funds. But what this will do, it will give me 0.8 million in the bank. I've used both my free transfers, and even though Bryan Mbeumo away against Man United isn't necessarily the greatest fixture on paper, as I mentioned, I don't think it is a terrible move in terms of a long-term pick. I know Mbeumo at home against Ipswich is a fantastic game in game week 9, and it just gets it done early doors for me. And as I've spoken about with Aston Villa, yes, I still think they're a good team, but I'm not seeing it right now in the underlying numbers. And maybe just having Morgan Rogers right now as my value pick in that team is the route to go for. And Dominic Solanke gets me a piece of that Spurs attack, even though it might not be the ideal one. As I've spoken about, Brennan Johnson is maybe my priority. But I feel like this then ticks a lot of boxes for my team. And then going into game week 9, I have this team going out, which I feel pretty confident about. The main issue, of course, is going to be Liverpool playing up against Arsenal. But in this game week, if I wanted to, I could then maybe sacrifice one of my Liverpool defenders and enable a defensive transfer, going down probably to free up some funds. But of course, we will address that situation when we get to game week 9. So all in all, I do think I'm going to be using my 2 free transfers to target Bryan Mbeumo and Solanke, as it will get a piece of the Brentford attack, which is looking good, and it will also get me the focal point in that Spurs attack as well, which I think is also really, really important. Of course, the third option that I haven't spoken about is just rolling the transfer and keeping the faith in EZE. That is going to be the real brave move. And to be honest, I probably am going to get rid of EZE because I'm a little bit scared that he will hurt me once again. But would I be surprised if EZE was to start to go on a hot streak based on the underlying numbers? Absolutely not. I do think Glasner will figure out eventually, but I just feel like with the appeal of other options there, I probably am going to back down and get rid of EZE, even though I don't love the idea. So likely the 2 free transfers. But again, let me know what your transfers are and what you would do with this team. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 8 Transfer Plans video. We will be doing another one after the majority of the international break, but I really just want to get my early transfer plans out and, of course, just find out how you guys are getting on in Game Week 7. So, of course, share your scores in the comment section. Be awesome to hear what you got and what your plans are. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and, of course, smash the subscribe button. Enjoy the international break. I'll take a few days off and I'll see you in a future video. Take care. Cheers.